Nigeria is inching closer to its 30% broadband penetration target by 2018. As the Nigerian Communications Commission reveals, the country has achieved over 20% penetration, with total active subscribers surpassing 152 million and internet penetration more than 97 million. Funke Okpeke, CEO at MainOne, joined me to share her insight into broadband penetration in the country and ways to deepen ICT infrastructure in Nigeria. Hi, Funke, thank you so much for joining us today. It's a great opportunity to look back at the emerging broadband economy of Nigeria, and I think you can really speak to this point. And it's a recession, we know that, but I just do get the sense that while it's a tough time for businesses in general, technology is still the future. And we need to keep moving in that direction. We need government policies to be in support of that. What's your assessment of Nigeria's broadband economy today? How have you seen that evolution? And in your view, what are the big issues that need to be fixed?
The broadband ecosystem, so to speak, has truly improved in Nigeria, especially at the retail level. So you're starting to see the impact of submarine cables and international capacity coming in because the networks have rolled out more 3G services. There is some 4G competition from new entrants in some of the cities, and truly most retail subscribers can get a richer package or a broadband package at a more affordable price today. And so that's, a variety of factors. Some changes in terms of data price regulation by the regulator, as well as just the fact that the networks have been upgraded and can provide more capacity, more data capacity to subscribers. There's still challenges in terms of quality of service, but overall the throughput and the data being pushed over the networks is much higher than it's been in any previous years. So that has improved. Institutionally, or when you look at the infrastructure behind that, there have been some improvements in recent years as well, with all the tower sales and consolidation, which says people deploying base stations can leverage shared infrastructure rather than having to build their own to deploy services. And that's some of the benefits of that are what we're seeing in terms of the radio networks. However, if you look at the backbone infrastructure, if you look at schools, government institutions, businesses, our collective as a nation and where we are, there's still a lot of work to be done. We really still need to open up the country so that every tertiary institution, every secondary school, government services are effectively delivered online, and we can truly say we are a digital economy.
Right. Let's reflect on that point around educational institutions, because I think they perhaps need it the most. And what's the best way to fix that? Is it going to be more of a corporate social responsibility initiative around some of the providers of the service, or does the government need to incentivize providers to go there? And your perspective on the best way forward there?
I think it's a mix. I don't believe it can be just corporate social responsibility, because we have a responsibility as a nation, and our government has a responsibility of educating the next generation of Nigerians. So if the corporates don't do it, then our children will not get educated. So while there's a role for corporate social responsibility, and you're seeing some of that, it is pockets, and it doesn't really apply to every institution, and we need to ensure that every child, every youth in university or secondary school or even primary school in Nigeria, from Maiduguri to Lagos to Yenagoa, actually have the same kind of access. So that's the first thing. So I think we need to revisit strategies. We need to look at educational spending and how that is directed, and maybe what we're spending in print or in other material, we could start directing towards technology, both for teacher education and for student education. And the other week, I was invited as part of a Global Connect program in the United States, and we were actually talking about how they achieved success in using their universal access funds to get schools all connected to the internet in the 90s and early 2000s. And what they said was, what they actually did was that the universal service funds were given directly to the institutions. So the institutions got a budget allocation, and then they had to go buy the connectivity themselves. And what they found was that was the most effective way, because they could not access the funds unless they were buying connectivity. But then it wasn't a program where it was centrally purchased on their behalf and it wasn't actually implemented. So I think we need to just look at different strategies, what works for us, and redirect what spend we have. But I think education in the 21st century without ICT is a lost cause.
Right. I think it's important to make that point, and maybe you can reflect further on that point. Why should Nigeria as a country pursue and implement a broadband strategy? We've heard, for instance, that the Nigeria Communications Commission has a target of 30% coverage by 2018.
Yes.
That doesn't even sound like a lot to me, but even that I'm not sure we can achieve given where we are today. But your perspective on the importance of this for the future of Nigeria?
When you look at that, and I agree with you, when you look at the 30% target, you can achieve a 30% target in Nigeria without really touching the people who need it the most. Because again, you get the high net worths, you get the people who live in the urban areas who can afford it, and they get these services. And the people in our schools around the country, the young people who can create opportunities for themselves, do not have access to it. The reality is the internet today is a global repository of knowledge and information. So if you know how to access a few key websites, you really can get unlimited information. Courseware from the best universities in the world, Harvard, Stanford, are available online free. To people who have curiosity. So when we're talking about upgrading our educational standards, when we're talking about giving people the tools, there's a lot we can do to give our young people access to information, access to tools, ability to help themselves, in addition to the help they can get through traditional methods of instruction, to make them close that knowledge gap, close that skills gap that is so critical in this country. When we also look at the issues of foreign exchange, see how many young Nigerians are going overseas to get better quality education. And a lot of the material they're going to get offshore can be brought here, is available here, really at the click of a mouse. In addition, we have so many Nigerians, even Nigerians in the diaspora, who can educate, who can mentor, who can coach, who can teach. And so technology can be a very quick game changer, because you need to roll out the technology. You can roll it out quicker than you can train all the teachers, teachers who've been in the system for so many years, and who have a role in terms of guiding the young people, but may not have access to the latest and greatest teaching techniques or teaching material or the curriculum that is relevant for the 21st century. And so that's where education comes in helping us bridge that gap with our large youth population.
Right, and I think the point has been made about the percentage improvement in GDP because of the penetration of broadband and, of course, the internet in general. But I want you to now reflect on the government, really really keen into this as a part of their strategy to deploy their economic programs. For instance, we know that there is a census that has been suggested for 2018. To what extent is technology being used to drive that? Issues around identifying Nigerians, to what extent are we using technology to drive that? And maybe, can you just speak to the use of technology in government institutions as a way to bring more efficiency in the way government is being run going forward?
Yeah, I think there's a huge opportunity that we face there. As of today, most Nigerians still don't have any kind of national identification. We're trying to bring more people into the tax net. We're also trying to bring more people and create some kind of formal social security systems. People are using SIM cards. So the issue of national identity, of identity tracking for everything from economic transactions, social services, security, and crime prevention is really critical. I think the last big program that we have seen with, I would say, considerable success is the BVN, which was driven by the central bank, and I believe brought, last number I heard was 32, but so I'm sure somewhere between 32 and 42 million people who are well identified and who their economic activities can be tracked. Now, a few weeks or a month ago, the NCC said they were going to make their information, their database from SIM card registration available to the National Identity Management Commission. I think it is a priority. We keep hearing about fake SIM cards, that we truly use technology to manage our national identity. We cannot have a digital economy without identity management. We need to, you cannot bring people into the tax fold or the tax rolls if you don't know who they are. You cannot bring businesses. So, and technology enables us. If we could do voter registration and get about 60 million people, I think, on the rolls nationwide, if we could do BVN, if the banks could drive BVN in a nation where we're still working on financial inclusion and get over 30 million people in the course of less than 1 year. If SIM card registration, because all the phones were going to be disconnected, I think they got, I don't know how many, but close to 100 million people registered, then definitely we can bring all this data together. And I think it will serve a lot of purposes. In most countries around the world, you have initiatives on open data today where people can go and query by region various statistics for business development. Where do we have a lot of cars? So how many cars do we have here that I need to service? What's the youth population? So what things would they purchase? Where should I go put my factory? What are the services that are available? And if we are going to increase the productivity and truly enable our young people economically, I think there's a huge opportunity ahead of our government to start bringing some of these data sources together and really give people that digital infrastructure. It's the underpinnings of the digital infrastructure so we can operate more efficiently in this new world.
That was Funke Opeke, CEO at MainOne. As we continue our conversation on how to deepen broadband penetration in Nigeria, my guest is Funke Opeke, the CEO of MainOne. Funke, I just want us to now reflect on this whole Infraco issue. And maybe a good place to start is help our audience understand what it's about, what it's supposed to achieve, and how MainOne is keen into this initiative.
Thank you. As part of the National Broadband Plan that was adopted by the previous administration in 2013, it was decided that wholesale infrastructure licenses were going to be issued for metro and last mile distribution. And wireless licenses were going to be issued and fiber licenses were going to be issued. And the country for fiber was divided into 7 regions, the 6 geopolitical regions, and then Lagos was carved out to build out shared infrastructure, shared fiber infrastructure that everyone could tap into. Objective was enhance access, the reach of such fiber, and lower the cost of providing last mile services. 2 regions were set out in 2014 for bid, Lagos and North Central, which covered Abuja. We bid for Lagos, and in 2015 we were announced as the winner of the bid for the Lagos zone. The new administration came in, they wanted to review the process, which they did, and in July of this year, we were awarded, or we were issued with the Infraco license, and we have paid the license fees. Now, there's some further regulations and agreements that are tied to that license that we're still working with the NCC And we're also working with Lagos state governments to review our plans so we can actually start building.
Right. So, but help me understand what this is about. So it's supposed to provide, if you like, a backbone, fiber backbone for the entire state, right?
Yes.
Right.
So in Lagos, our plans initially in 2014, we were going to build over 1,000 kilometers. I think we've already expanded those plans even before we started building to 1,200 kilometers of fiber that we want to build to provide connectivity in all the commercial areas, all the local government areas. Now you start getting all the educational institutions, all the government MDAs. We are also line to support Lagos State's Safe City program, because the fiber will provide Lagos State with connectivity for cameras and infrastructure in public places. So it is an expansive program.
Right. So
we're ready to go in terms of obviously having the resources on hand so we can start building and having the technical and financial capacity, but working with the government agencies on the necessary permits and reviews of exactly what we intend to do so we can get going.
Right, so let's talk about some of those issues. You mentioned permits, and I understand that this issue around the right of way to roll out this backbone has been an issue in the past. Have we been able to overcome that? Is that still a thorny issue for this project?
We are hopeful that we will overcome it. The program is one that has been embraced by the new administration in Lagos, and it is one that is beneficial to the state. We are bringing private capital to put infrastructure in the state, which, as you had mentioned earlier, this kind of infrastructure expands economic activity and GDP. So it is a positive thing. It would be a positive thing to connect schools in Lagos, to connect all the MDAs, local government offices, for better operational efficiency for the government. So the government is looking at it, and we are optimistic that we will get the necessary permits to do the work.
Right. So, but in terms of capital, can you tell us how much this is going to cost, and what are your expectations in terms of spending for this rollout?
Well, InfraCo, to effectively wire all of Lagos, is at least $100 million investment in just the fiber and the access infrastructure. Actually deploying services on top of that infrastructure is a further investment.
Right. But we already have the telcos providing broadband services and so forth. How does this impact that dynamic right now? Because it's already out there, and many are already providing broadband services.
Yes, out there, but as you would attest, quality challenged and perhaps not enough. So what this starts to enable is where currently majority of the towers or the base stations in Nigeria are not connected with fiber. It would enable us access fiber to base stations. So right now you're getting fiber from aggregation nodes. It would also enable us to take fiber directly into most commercial areas so that you can actually have fiber directly to the businesses, fiber directly to the homes, although I think that would only apply for high net worth districts. But then, as I mentioned, you also have fiber to street cameras, you have fiber to schools. All schools in Lagos State have been surveyed and cataloged. You have to all MDAs, so all state offices or local governments or clinics. So you can start to imagine what the impact of this would be.
What do you think this is likely to unleash economically? When you look at the trends that we're seeing in how businesses are done online, things like the entertainment sector, for instance, I think there's some huge changes that we're seeing, even as recently as the last few years.
Yeah, I think what the statistics from the World Bank say, for example, is that for every 10% increase in broadband penetration, you get a 1.3% increase in GDP. If this is implemented in Lagos, I think we will blow past that 30% target really quickly. And so you can start to imagine what kind of economic activity it would unleash. I mean, we have a critical traffic problem in Lagos. You could see a lot more services delivered online. I think you already see a lot of e-commerce businesses, our young people innovating to meet the needs of our society, and I think we can expect to see more of that. We talked about education earlier. Educational outcomes in Lagos schools, I think, could be significantly improved with this technology. Safety and security, better monitoring, so we don't have to have people running around and not trying to get there because they're getting real live images, and so the responsiveness of our security agencies could be even better. So I think that's what we expect. So a more vibrant Lagos and a more commercially successful.
And I'm sure many of our viewers are itching to see this happen. How quickly can we see it happen?
I think we can start to, it takes a while, obviously, building infrastructure, civil works, laying the fiber, and then putting in the electronics. But I think if we start rolling out, you could start seeing improvements as early as next year. As you already know, and we mentioned, there is some fiber already. So it's really building out to augment what's there, to extend it, to deepen the capacity to provide services, and so I think the impact can be felt in as quickly as 12 months.
Right. Lagos is obviously a great opportunity, commercial capital, a lot of business happening here, but many will also like to see this happen in other parts of the country, and the big question is there enough of an incentive to get players like MainOne, for instance, to go into other parts of Nigeria? When you look at the landscape, the economic landscape of Nigeria, do you think there is still a case for the type of investments you're looking to make in Lagos to be made in other parts of this country?
Well, as you said, the key word is incentive. And just this week, the NCC published the invitation for bids for other parts of the country. And clearly, the business model has to include incentives for people to want to build. I think for us, we are focused on business to business. Lagos is a commercial capital of the country. We still have not started our Lagos project. We would like to focus on Lagos. And I hope that the new programs for the other 5 regions that will require more incentives. I know that there are lots of players who are interested, that the NCC would create the right enabling environment and also provide the right incentives, and that the states would also cooperate, because it's also essential that they have the buy-in of the states in terms of granting access, giving those permits, and allowing them to lay the infrastructure and do their business for this to be successful.
I think you make an interesting point about the states, and there is a slowdown everywhere, and the state governments also are trying to fix their economies, their local economies. In terms of smart thinking here, I just wanted to speak to the opportunity that some states can really use to blossom in this difficult time. In keying into a project like this, your thoughts about perhaps a state in northern or central Nigeria embracing this, and perhaps that could help that state turn around economically. Can you just speak to that point?
Yes. I think a lot of our government agencies look at input taxes as opposed to output taxes, and they kill investment. They discourage investment because they make the high cost of investment, they make the cost of investment much higher. And so it discourages private investors in a market where you're facing other risks and capital is already very expensive. So what they need to focus on are the benefits that they get from the investment, and really focus on output taxes. Have arrangements where they get an annual fee on the right-of-way, an annual rent, rather than charging the money up front. If the operator is already generating revenue, that's a lot more affordable if the fees are reasonable. So I think our governments need to look at that, because if we have better educational outcomes, if you have businesses, you have all the urban migration focused on Lagos, because Lagos has better infrastructure. Right. So if they start having this kind of infrastructure, there's no reason why people cannot develop software in Maiduguri. There's no reason why people cannot provide outsourcing or call center services out of those places as well. So that is the real opportunity that our state governments have to look at.
And that was Funke Okpeke, CEO at MainOne.